Welcome back to the Naked Woman podcast. I am your host, Gemma Louise Finch, and today's episode is all about intuition and how my time at the nudist beach has helped me cultivate and deepen my relationship to it, and to learn what it truly means to listen and to follow that inner guide. So let's jump back into the story of getting naked. So I want to share two stories with you today from my time at the nudist beach. And these two stories I really feel highlight my journey around learning to trust and learning to listen to my intuition. But before I do, I want to give just a little bit of background into my journey around intuition. So not that long ago, had I been asked, do I trust my intuition? My honest answer would have been, what intuition? Because I did not believe that I had intuition to listen to, let alone to use. And I can really see how growing up, I had unconsciously suppressed that part of me. Intuition was something that my family did not value. I grew up in a very logical and rational family, and so me piping up with my intuitiveness didn't always get the best reception. And so I realized that my intuition was something that I couldn't rely on. And so I stopped listening to it. And over time, that inner voice got quieter and quieter until I believed I no longer had it. And it wasn't till about 2 years before I went to that nudist beach that I started to come back in and become aware of my intuition and aware of that connection. And I remember being told, listen to your intuition. And one of the things I always used to think at the time, and that was, how? I don't know what it feels like. I can really remember this, like, you're telling me to listen to my intuition, yet I can't feel it. I don't know what it's supposed to feel like. How, therefore, am I ever going to learn to use my intuition? I really want to share that, because what I certainly have learned, that even now, that me learning to listen to my intuition is a choice that I make daily, and it has been something that the more that I have chosen to listen to my intuition, the more I have chosen to use it as a guide, the louder it has got and the easier it has got to really understand what my intuition feels like. And I truly believe it's going to be an ongoing process throughout my life. So let's jump back to the nudist beach. So there I am, sitting in my own little bubble, feeling very happy that I'm sunbathing naked, and I become aware of a presence coming closer to me. I open my eyes and I look up, and there is a naked man standing directly in front of me. And I will say, up until this point, I hadn't spoken to a single soul on that beach. I had been very much content in my own little energy bubble, in my own little world, and didn't really have any desire to actually speak to other people. So I was a little bit taken back by this presence in front of me. And I'll be very honest, the only thought that was going through my mind at this point was, keep making eye contact. Do not avert your gaze. Keep making eye contact. And as somebody who has always struggled to give eye contact, this was very, very hard. And as we made eye contact, he then asked, do I have the time? Immediately, I felt this offness. Something didn't feel right, and I can remember it. I felt it deep, deep in my gut. But I reached over to my phone and gave him the time, to which he subsequently placed his towel directly next to mine, sat on the floor, looked at me, and said, can I sit down and join you? And in that moment, I had never felt the loudest no in my gut. And I found myself saying, the following words: "No, I appreciate you asking. However, I'd like you to leave." And I don't know who was more shocked, me or him, because I had never said those words before. I don't think I have ever said no before in my life. I'd always said no, but let me please give you an explanation so I don't feel so bad and you don't think I'm a horrible person. Or no, but yes, actually I can. It's just, but you know what? Yes, that's fine. But actually, no. I said no. And that moment will never be lost on me. As I said, I think he was a little shocked because I don't think that was the response that he was expecting. So much so, he huffed and he puffed and he got hold of his towel and he stormed off. And what came next was very interesting because, in response to his behavior, I could feel myself starting to shrink. And I became aware of the thoughts in my mind that were saying, well, that wasn't very nice, was it, Gemma? That wasn't very polite. Why did you say no? You don't know what he was sitting down for. You could have just been polite and had a conversation with him. Maybe he just wanted somebody to talk to. And you said no. What logical reason did you have to say no? And I could hear all these thoughts coming through my mind, and I could feel myself start to question that intuitive response. And it became so clear to me in that moment of how I had learned to not trust my intuition and how I had questioned my intuition and I had tried to bring my rational and logical mind to explain that intuitive response when really I couldn't. And something really special happened in that moment because I remember thinking, I have a choice here. I have a choice to trust in that intuitive response, that no that I felt deep within my belly, that was so loud and so clear. Or I have a choice to listen to my thoughts, to listen to those stories, that narrative that I could hear playing out in my mind. And in that moment, I chose to listen to my intuition and let go of needing to have a logical answer as to why. And so there I am a few hours later, and again I feel a presence start to approach me. I open my eyes and look up, and there's another naked man standing directly in front of my towel. And I was a little bit more prepared this time, but I'll be honest, I still had that thought of do not avert your eye, do not drop eye contact. And he said hello, and I said hello back, and he said, would you mind putting sun cream on my back? Now, I will be honest, I was taken back by that because that was not a question that I was expecting. And again, immediately I became aware of all those thoughts and I could hear myself going, oh, that's a bit weird. I don't know if I want to touch a stranger's back. Why can't he do it himself? Like, he has a spray bottle. Surely he could reach and do it himself. And as these thoughts were running through my mind, I became aware of what I was feeling. And it was so clear. It was so genuine. I could feel the intention behind this man, and it was genuine. And so I remember asking, is this a yes or a no? And I got a very clear yes. And so I said, sure. And he gave me his sun cream and he turned around and I put sun cream on his back. And then he said thanks and off he went. And it left me in a little bit of shock because I could feel there was this one part, especially my logical brain, that wanted to tell me, well, that was weird. Like, who asked that? Yet I couldn't shake this deep knowing that actually his response and his question and his intent was so genuine. And I didn't feel off about that. These two stories in particular, I really wanted to share because for me, they really highlight this phrase of it's not what it looks like, it's what it is. Because I think if I was to look at these two stories from the perspective of what it looks like, then it'd be very easy for me to think that the guy asking for the time is genuine and the guy who asked me to put sun cream on was not. But when I chose to look through the eyes of what it is, I was shown a different truth. And that's truth around what it is over what it looks like. Because my intuition went straight to what it is and picked it up like that. And I realized I don't need words to justify what it is when I'm willing to choose it, when I'm willing to trust it. That part of me knows what it is. It knows whether it's for my highest good or not. I just need to be willing to listen and willing to trust it. And so I'm so grateful for these two stories because they really show me what it is to live through my intuition. I was able to see the truth within me, to see the actual intention and the energy behind those words, and how actually the guy in the first story, his words didn't match his intention. And I know this as well because it was actually when I was contemplating this, I realized that he asked if he could sit down after he was already sitting down, which I think does also show his intention. They both showed me the lesson that I needed. Without that first story, I wouldn't have known what no felt like in my body. And so I'm so grateful for that gentleman for approaching me. Because without him, I don't think I would have been able to hear my yes so clearly over the last 3 years. I have found my ability to trust and listen and read my intuition grow and deepen, and can very much see how I've been able to take that into my everyday life. I mean, one of the things that I really used to struggle with was making decisions. If you ask any of my friends and family, they would tell you, Gemma cannot make decisions to save her life. And I never could, because the actual guide within me that would have helped me make those decisions, I had decided didn't exist within me. And that willingness to see it, the willingness to listen to it, the willingness to trust my intuition means that I have this inner guide. And so I can make decisions and I can take action because I know I will always have this inner voice, this inner guide within me. And as somebody who really did struggle to make decisions, the peace and the sense of safety that I feel at knowing that I will always have that part of me that I can lean back on. And as I continue my journey to deepen my relationship with my intuition, I've realized that it's not about improving my intuition, because my intuition has been here all along. It's about improving my ability to connect and listen to it. So the question I ask you isn't whether you have intuition. You have it. The question is, are you listening? Thank you for joining me on today's episode. If this story has resonated with you, I would love to hear. You can message me directly or on Instagram at the Naked Woman Podcast. Join me next week where we continue the story of getting naked here on the Naked Woman Podcast.